Welcome back to another edition of the Three Stooges podcast. We're the Stooges, Joe Davidson, Chris Jackson, Jordan Georgeson. We don't always take each other seriously, but we take covering high school sports and our roles in this pretty seriously, especially when we have some hot topics like this. Hazing. By any definition, hazing is rooted in humiliation. It's an intentional act to ridicule or even harm somebody. And it's become a real problem in high school sports in this state. And there's a problem right now with the Oak Grove Thundering Herd, one of the storied programs in this CIF Sac Joaquin section, the greater Sacramento area. We're working on that at the Sacramento Bee. These are hard cases or hard situations to really figure out what's going on. There's juveniles involved, but something bad went wrong with some Oak Grove football players from the freshman or JV team, probably the JV team. I don't think they have a freshman team. But regardless, what's the intent of hazing? What are you doing? These are supposed to be your teammates, and you hear family and brotherhood, and we've seen it rock programs over the years. Modern Day down in Orange County a few years ago, Napa High School, 2017, six players were expelled and charged with crimes tied to hazing, and it almost folded the program. They offered that job, Napa, one of the great programs over the years, to six different people back in 2017. Everybody turned it down, and the principal said, "We're going to fold the program." And they didn't fold the program, but it was getting that bad. We've seen it in the Bay Area, we've seen it in Los Angeles, and it's just what's going on here. And so we're starting off with that, but we're also going to touch on there's a big gap, massive gap between the Southern California heavyweight football programs, Mater Dei, Bosco, Mission Viejo, and our teams up here in Northern California. Example, the Folsom Bulldogs, top ranked team in this section. The Sac Joaquin section just got railed by Mission Viejo in a top 10 state showdown. There's a lot of work to be done. We'll break that down. We've got game balls for teams, coaches, players. We're going to preview the next week's games, but I'm fired up. I'm irked. I'm disappointed about hazing. I hate reporting on stories like this. It's gut wrenching for parents and coaches and a lot of these things. And I don't get it. I'm going to turn the floor over to Jordan first and then kick it over to Chris. But we hear about these things over the years. Not cool. So if you want to ruin your reputation, you want to ruin your team, and if you want to put a bad light on your school, then you do that. Otherwise, grow up and act your age and act like you belong.
Well said. It's an unfortunate thing that happens at all levels of sports. I mean, we see it even in, the pros. We've had hazing scandals over the years, with, incoming rookies and stuff like that. And, it's one thing when there's the rite of passage. I mean, we even had it in college where the rookies have to or the freshmen have to pick up the bags after practice. Okay, that's one thing. But when you're getting to humiliation and, physical things and, I mean, crimes and sexual assaults and things like that rooted with this hazing, I mean, it's going too far. And like you said, Joe, the whole point of it essentially is humiliation. And, if you want to give the incoming freshmen or the new players or whatever it is a hard time, there's ways to kind of, give them this quote unquote rite of passage without humiliating these kids and embarrassing them. And, clearly this situation has crossed a line. It's sad to see. I mean, we've seen it, like you said, multiple times at schools around this area. It's a nationwide problem. And unfortunately, it seems to be one of those things that just nobody, I mean, it keeps happening. And I think the only way to really stop it is to really lay the hammer down on these programs that get caught with it. Because if you don't do that, then how's it going to stop? I mean, we're feels like the punishments for a lot of these are already pretty severe, and I think fairly severe, but still severe nonetheless, and it still keeps happening. So at this point, I mean, I feel like we have to start really looking in and being like, yeah, maybe, some of these punishments, if it comes out to all be true, do seem over dramatic, but it might be the only way to kind of stop this epidemic from happening.
I don't think there was any better way to say it than Jordan just did. We've all played sports. There's nothing wrong with joking with each other, playful fun, all that stuff. Heck, the three of us do it all the time. We joke with each other, we mess around with each other. That's just the way it is, right? But there is a difference between having fun and humiliation. And some people will say, and I've had people say this to me too, that that's what makes you become a man is dealing with that humiliation. No, it isn't. What makes you a man is working your tail off, outworking everybody, being a good person, a good leader, a good friend, a good teammate, a good husband, a good father, everything else. That's what makes you a man. Not being humiliated to earn your rite of passage onto a team. That's not how it works. We've seen instances of it. Like Joe, I'm going through your story right now with the Oak Ridge situation a couple of years ago, right? Where several players, as you had learned then before that season, you had a couple of players suspended or expelled, and you saw Oak Ridge's principal then, Aaron Palm, took accountability right away, said that they're investigating and going through the facts, but they're going to hold everybody accountable. They're determined to stamp it out, put a stamp on it, all that stuff. And that's the way we've seen it at a lot of spots. You go back to the Napa High situation too, where you had six players. You go just on ABC 7 News, there were six players were charged in that hazing scandal at that point, and then there were others being investigated too. I mean, thank goodness that program didn't fold, so we could all get the pleasure of watching Brock Bowers play at Napa High School. But imagine the repercussions of your actions. It takes away perhaps generational athletes playing there, generational teams. You get a bad reputation. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen. It's unfortunate. It looks like this is being investigated. Hopefully, everyone learns, whatever the heck happens, but you don't need to be humiliated to become a man. That's not how it works in real life. That's not how it works in the real world. You become a man, you become a great person by freaking doing the right thing, being a leader, working your tail off, and holding yourself and holding others accountable.
That's exactly right. And some might wonder, what about the CIF, the California Interscholastic Federations, the governing body for active sports? Can they step in? No, the CIF has to let each school and district handle these problems. Now, if this was a playoff event, a CIF state championship or section event, then that might be different. But have to let there's 1,600 high schools in this state, so you got to let your schools and districts, and there will be expulsions, there will be suspensions. These are hard to peel back, as we mentioned earlier, because they're juveniles and all that. But we will keep an eye on that with the Oak Grove Thundering Herd and what's going on with that. And I don't understand the concept. Is this supposed to be cool? Is this peer pressure that you get a humiliated guy? And guess what people do? They film. They film. Everybody has a cell phone, and so then it just players transfer out or kids quit for football. It's just not a good deal. But all right, shifting gears. How does Northern California close the gap to Southern California to refresh De La Salle of Contra Costa County, the nationally renowned football juggernaut for decades, for years, was a state-ranked number one team at the end of the season. There were no state playoffs until 2006, and there was that gap when De La Salle in the 90s or the 2000s would take on Long Beach Poly or Mater Dei and just beat the tar out of them. And then for several years, when the state football playoffs started in 2006, De La Salle was still king of the hill. De La Salle hasn't won a state championship, I think, since 2016. Not because they're thin on talent or coaching. It's because it's the climb over Mater Dei and Bosco, the national number one, number two team over these years, has been too steep. And so now we have the Folsom Bulldogs, four-time defending Division One section champion, five-time state championship winning program since 2010, took on Mission Viejo in Orange County, state-ranked powerhouse, and just got decked. It was 10 sacks for Mission Viejo, one handily. Um, and I'm going to look up at that score. And it was Elk Grove's, it was Folsom lost 53-14. It was Folsom's worst loss since 54-10 loss to Elk Grove in the Division One section playoffs in 2006. Um, the point being, guys, is there's still a big gap. And I think, in a way, this could really wake up Folsom. Those kids are ambitious. They thought they were going to go 15-0, going to beat Mater Dei in the Open Division State Championship. Just pump the brakes, focus on today, refocus. And Folsom's coming off a satisfying 56-42 win over Sarah, which then loses to De La Salle in a shutout. So it looks like De La Salle is the number one team in Northern California. But these are jolting wake-up calls for programs like Folsom. And I think Coach Paul Doherty's, he knows his team needs to be brought to earth, just like the Grant Pacers in their season opener against Folsom. So Jordan, I know you got a pretty good pulse on this state. There's still a big gap between the Southern California heavies and Northern California in general. And we see this in other sports too, basketball, baseball, softball, track and field. There's just more population down in Southern California. There's more kids. And you look at modern day in Bosco, they got like 35, 37 kids with scholarship offers. Folsom has 17, 18, 19. So there's a gap there. And we got a pulse on it because people always look ahead. Can this matchup happen and this matchup happen?
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at some of these state championship seasons here, I mean, the only public school to even win the Open Division has been Grant, and that was in 2008, I believe. But outside of that, NorCal hasn't won it since I think 2015 or 16. Like you said, it's been either Modern Day or Bosco, and even if you take them out of the equation here, I mean, you're still looking at Centennial is. It feels like night and day above a lot of these programs most years. Mission Viejo is night and day above them. Orange Lutheran, Servite, some of these great programs down there. So it really has gotten to a point where, I mean, a lot of it's just a talent distribution out here, and I don't necessarily know what the answer is going to be, other than it will get better as more people move to Northern California and move to the Bay and move to Sacramento and whatnot, and we get a few more of those athletes in these areas. But I mean, the real thing is a lot of it kind of comes down to the population hubs are down there in LA. They're going to have the bigger cream of the crop. You have what? I think it's like the city of Los Angeles has like 13 professional sports franchises between the four major sports. So, if you think about it, a lot of these guys retire going down there. A lot of former pro athletes retire to go live in LA, even if you played in Minnesota or whatever. And then the parents are sending their kids to go get coached by these guys because they become private coaches. And it kind of starts to become an iron sharpens iron event. And I think another thing to consider with this too is when NorCal is winning titles, a lot of times it's in the middle divisions, like the division 3 through 5 in these NorCal and state titles. And a lot of that too is because I think we get the small towns. NorCal kind of and the Valley kind of have the pulse on these small towns, and a lot of times, they're facing a team from maybe LA that's from a big city, a population area that is in this division because of competitive equity. And I think sometimes that's where the playing field gets a little more even for these small towns out here. But the reality is, it's more people down in that area. I mean, not even just football. We're thinking Colfax girls basketball when they lost their first state title in that incredible run they had. The school they played, I think it was Los Osos out of Rancho Cucamonga. The school had more students than the town of Colfax had people. I mean, it's tough to have an even playing field there. And that Colfax team was in that game for 3 quarters. And then the next year they go play Harvard Westlake, another powerhouse that's been in the Open Division and been nationally ranked, and they were winning that game, I think, at one point in the fourth quarter. So the reality is there's still talent in these NorCal areas. I think the problem is it's just so much talent that it can kind of be a daunting task. I mean, like we kind of said, that looking at these open division games in football, I mean, it's been private schools every single year. The last time a public school even played in this was De La Salle's last championship, actually, when it played Centennial out of Corona. And I don't know necessarily the best answer to how we're going to solve this equation, but I do think that Folsom is doing the right thing by scheduling these games because as a Florida State fan, I got to quote Bobby Bowden here. It's old saying: first you lose by a lot, then you lose by a little, then you win by a little, then you win by a lot. I think Folsom's kind of taking that method with this, and hey, schedule these games because you guys remember when De La Salle was beating the doors off Folsom a decade ago, and now Folsom is holding their own, if not beating them. And same with programs like Sarah. So I think the best way to combat it really is to keep scheduling these games, and eventually they are going to find a way to win. But we're still a ways away because it's just all this talent is fluctuating there, and these schools have the money. I've seen NIL in high school now, but there's going to be a way to close the gap eventually. They just need to keep kind of chipping away at it.
There's more money down there in high school athletics as well. If you see coaching salaries at a lot of these big schools, one of those schools, one of their assistants makes $200,000 per year. We don't have those types of salary stipends when it comes to Northern California football. They've got more people. They've got more money invested into the game. We're seeing it at these biggest schools. Look at St. John Bosco playing St. Francis Academy last week. St. Francis Academy, a powerhouse from Maryland to the Baltimore area. Bosco, #2 in America. At least 75 players, I should say, in that game had at least one FBS offer. 46 players in that game were rated 3 stars or higher. That shows the widening gap. And St. John Bosco is not even #1 in the LA area. That goes to Mater Dei. #2 is Bosco. #3 is Sierra Canyon, who has not allowed a single point this season. Then you get to #4, Mission Viejo, who's top 15 in America, and they're just #4 in their own freaking region. And they just pumped the brakes off of Folsom, who is an unbelievable program, an unbelievable team, but it wasn't close from the start. Joe, you had mentioned the 10 sacks. I think what were 2 of those in the end zone as well. There were a couple of safeties, I want to say, in that game. That shows the gap. Mission Viejo is also rated better nationally than De La Salle, who's now the NorCal #1 team again after what it did against Sarah. That gap keeps widening right now, and it's not because De La Salle's any worse than it was back in the day. If you look at the talent on the roster, all that, it's the same old De La Salle, but it's because the modern days, the St. John Boscos got better. They've got more talent. They've invested more. More kids are going to those schools. Sierra Canyon, Mission Viejo, same thing. And I'm just going to say it bluntly. Some of the top players in that area have been from Northern California as well. Modern Days had a couple of running backs who were from Northern California. Raleek Brown from Stockton. Jordan Davidson, he was from the Walnut Creek, Concord, Danville area of Northern California. Phillip Bell went to Mission Viejo, but he originally started his career at Christian Brothers. And these are just a few examples of kids that are from NorCal, but have gone to SoCal. It's a different game, a different beast. There's different facilities, different money being paid to coaches at a lot of those schools too. You'll see a few schools up here where coaches make good money, but that'll be at some WCal schools, all that type of stuff. But it's a gap that keeps getting wider. There's different rules per section too, so there's probably 50 factors at play that goes into it. Then just the talent thing alone. When you've got 75 kids in one game with at least one FBS offer, how can you compete with that? Folsom's got 19 kids in its program with the Division I offer. Archbishop Reardon has 20. And we just saw what Mission Viejo did to a team with 19 kids with Division I offers. Maybe if Ryder Lyons is healthy, that game ends a little differently, but Mission Viejo stamped itself from the start, and that's still the #4 team in Los Angeles. So I'm not sure how we can counteract that. It's getting wider over time. Maybe things are cyclical, right? Things maybe eventually start turning the other way. We get closer again. Maybe a De La Salle becomes the #1 team in California again. Maybe that becomes Folsom. Maybe that becomes Sarah, Pitt, Reardon. Who knows? But at this point, there's a long way to go before Northern California at the highest level. Other divisions, we've won those games. We've seen Folsom win in Division I. We've seen De La Salle make runs in that division, other schools from NorCal and smaller schools as well. But at the top level of the open division, it's almost an impossible task at this point to compete with the modern days, the St. John Boscos and those teams that have 30 plus kids with Division I offers, and you've got backups with D1 offers that aren't getting a ton of playing time in the first half of games.
Yeah, it's just really amazing. And you think about how, Grant High School, the only public school, as we touched on earlier, that of the Pacers of Del Paso Heights won the state Open Division Championship in 2008. And Mike Albergini, the late great coach there, was scheduling bruisers in Utah and Southern California and Bakersfield in those years beforehand to test his program because a lot of local teams didn't want to play him. Northern California teams didn't want to play him. So it paid off. And in our rankings tomorrow at the Sacramento Bee, I kind of broke it down on, Folsom's bounced back before. Folsom lost 54-10 to Oco in the 2006 Division I section playoffs. And that's when the coaches for Folsom, Chris Richardson and staff said, hey, we can't play Smash Mouth anymore. We're going 6 wins, 4 losses every year, and we get just destroyed in the playoff. So they went with a spread and spread out the field. That was the big craze in college football back then. And get your guys in open space and bubble screens and let them take off. Troy Taylor was involved in all of that. And then they did take off. And then in 2010, Folsom opened with a 49-14 loss to Grant, but then used that game as a gauge and measuring stick and rallied behind it and then won the rematch in the section finals and then won the first of 5 CIF state championships. Folsom went 14-0 to start the 2012 season, went 14-0 to start the 2013 season, and got just thumped by De La Salle in the CIF Northern California Open Division Championship, which is no longer played. But Folsom used that, went back into the weight room. We got to get better. By 2014, Folsom went 16-0, 16 running clocks, did not play De La Salle that season. And so they've used all those gauge events. And remember, we talked about this too, guys, where Folsom lost to Sarah last year by a point, kept using it as a gauge, finally came back and beat Sarah a couple weeks ago. And remember, Sarah, the Padres superbly coached Patrick Walsh down in San Mateo in the Peninsula. Sarah was the number one team in Northern California for 3 straight years or so, and then went to the Open Division final and just got thumped by the Bruisers down south. And so there is a gap. I don't know. So let's focus on our local guys who are doing good things, and let's start handing off some game balls. I'm going to do more of a team type of thing, game ball here. Efforts that just really stood out to me. But Highlands with a fourth-year starting quarterback, Walter Lewis, had a touchdown run and a touchdown pass. Beat the Scots beat Kennedy 28-6. Why are we talking about the Highland Scots? Because we talk about everybody, small school, large school. We appreciate them all. A little bit bigger school, Nevada Union. I saw them just put on a clinic. The Miners ran all over Christian Brothers 52-20. Brandon McCallum and Ryder Elkman both had big games. Game ball also to coach Brad Sparks, who after the game, teams go through the handshaking line. He pulled out a couple of the Christian Brothers guys and gave them extra pats on the helmet and just applauded their effort. And he said later, he told me later, he goes, "You have to respect winning. We were on the other side of that last year. They lost 35-0 at Nevada Union." So I appreciate that. Another one, how about a game ball to Coach Davey Johnson? The Ponderosa Bruins are 3-0 and get a chance to take on a big powerhouse program this week in a gauge game against the Granite Bay Grizzlies. Jordan, we need to give a game ball to you and your wife and your family as you have a new addition to the family. If you could share with us who was born and the details and how that justifies missing a game on Friday. I'm still trying to comprehend that.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. So Wednesday, we went in. My wife was scheduled to have the baby this coming Wednesday, the 10th, and we were going in. They're like, "Hey, your blood pressure is a little high. Let's just send you down to labor and delivery." And they kind of send her back to monitor her. And I hear someone on the phone go, "Hey, why don't we just prep an operating room real quick? I think we're going to have that baby today." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure that's for us." So we go in there. And I think we went in, our appointment's at 10:30. They're prepping an operating room. She's going back at 1:45. Baby's here by 2:10. I mean, just surreal. It was like a million things going through my head. But yeah, my son was born, Jace Georgeson. He is going to be, at least in my mind, the 2047 first overall draft pick. We've got him benching the PVC pipe already, hitting that weight room, can never start him too early. But no, in all seriousness, yeah, we were in the hospital a couple days, and Friday night we were still in the hospital, and wanted to make sure to kind of get that bonding time in. So I was sidelined for the night. I will be back out there this coming Friday, but we can talk about that later. But mom's healthy, baby's healthy. We're all home. First night, I think we each only got an hour of sleep, but we've got them in a little bit of a routine now. Daughter's doing awesome. She loves being a big sister, wants to play with them all the time. And yeah, I think the biggest game ball that I've got to give is to my wife for, going through everything and being the champ that she is, and then to Kaiser staff because they were awesome in our recovery and helped us out a ton. So big game ball to them, and I got to give a game ball to my son because first night we brought him home, this kid pooped through 4 different onesies in like a 2-hour span. I've never seen anything like that. So got to give him a game ball too because I didn't know that the human body could do that, but he found a way.
I think that's remarkable, and I think that means he's going to have to be in the trenches. I mean, that's trench work
I,
there. So
that
uh,
is.
before we throw it back to you, Jordan, for game balls on the field, Chris Jackson, who earned some game balls, from Sac Joaquin section football play the other night.
I'm going to piggyback on Highlands, a big one there. And we talk about the trenches. Well, they've got some big freaking dudes in the trenches. They have a sophomore that's 6'5", 400. Another kid, 6'2", 355. 6'1", 285 for another, and 6'6", 325. How many schools have that type of size in the trenches? Kudos to Highlands. That's awesome to see. And Joe, you said it best. We highlight every school, big, small, medium, you name it. And kudos to Highlands. That's a heck of a game there. Let's go to some others too. Del Oro deserves a game ball. They absolutely smacked Placer in that game. A huge win for them. Colby Solji, I may have said your name wrong. I'm really sorry about that, but you had four tackles for loss in this game. That is game ball worthy there, and game ball to Josh Perry, year two of Ascena Del Oro. We all saw it last year on Facebook, everything else. People were calling for his head. Well, they lost it. Generational quarterback in Caden Pinnock from the year prior. Graduated a heck of a senior class. They went 2-8. Well, they've matched that total already. Two big wins. You beat Downey, you beat Placer. Good for Josh Perry. He's a great guy. He knows a thing or 50 million about football. And this is the Del Oro we all know and the Del Oro we grew up with. And let's go to Manteca as well. I'm not going to give Manteca High a game ball because they didn't play, but they still deserve kudos because that win over Cardinal Newman looks even better now. After Cardinal Newman had 6 interceptions against Grant to win, 3 of those from Kevon Penny, Manteca shows how good they are because they beat Cardinal Newman 40-7. And then elsewhere in that city, East Union High School, 3-0, and they are putting up 50+ points every game. They have a UC Davis commit, Jackson Fay. Joe, I cannot wait for you to cover him on the UC Davis beat. 274 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 3 carries for 126 yards, 4 catches for 51 yards, 2 kickoff returns for 97 yards. They are putting up points, and they have one of the best athletes in the section. Let's give one to Isaiah Aney from Granite Bay. Sacramento State commit. Joe, you're going to be covering, you already cover him now in high school. You're going to be covering him shortly in college, and I can't wait for him in that go-go offense. He had an interception, 215 rushing yards, 3 scores. Huge, huge game again from this kid that's been doing it for 4 years on varsity football. Let's go down to Houston. A second straight 1-score win. Eli Wilbanks, their running back. This kid is Houston through and through. His grandfather was the quarterback of the first ever TVL team there. All these years later, this kid is a champion through and through. 29 carries, 212 rushing yards. Marlon Blanton, a Jesuit, deserves one too. One of the great guys in this business, an all-time great guy. 100th career win. Could not happen to a better person there. And then let's give some to O-lines and running backs. Wes Burford of Oakdale, the Air Force commit, 342 all-purpose yards, 322 of those coming on the ground. You've got Sonora High School ran wild, ran crazy again. They had 459 yards on the ground. Sutter had 200-yard rushers, Lozy Asiata, Max Springgold, and Asiata, we remember his older brother, Auckland. He's now at Fresno State, an edge rusher, and their father played in the NFL. There's some great stuff there. And then Conley Cova at Wheatland, small school football at its finest, 125 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. It was an unbelievable Friday of games, unbelievable weekend. And then, you know what, I can't forget this, Roseville High School. Starting quarterback out, starting running back out, 6'5" receiver out with injury. What does Roseville do? They beat West Park, and they're 3-0. That is awesome for the Tigers. I will admit, I did not think that they could win this game, and I wrote them off after all those injuries. Not because the other kids aren't good, but that is a tough thing to overcome, especially playing a really good West Park program and a great head coach in Jason Tenner. And Adam Ranking, his Roseville Tigers, get a huge win. So those are some of my game balls. And my goodness, this section is as fun as it's ever been.
That's good stuff. Before I get back to you, Jordan, how about Jack Garceau gets a game ball? He's the reeling the football coach who's back in the saddle. Took 5 years off after, when you win a state championship with the Knights in 2018. You have earned some time off. Coaches get tired; they run themselves into the ground. But he's back at his got a big win over Center the other night, 35-15. And Jack Garceau, the coach, likes to run with power. He had 2 good-looking running backs and had big games: Joseph Corey and Luis Means. You beat me to the punch. Marlon Blanton, 100th win for the program, 183rd total. Kids love him. They play hard for him. He's got the Holy Bowl coming up, so he's looking for win number 101 there. Lane Brown, Winters of the Northern Section, small school excellence. This kid is a truck. 2 touchdown passes, 171 yards rushing, 2 more touchdowns. He's a load. Daniel Ward's an alum of the school. He's the coach there, 35-15, 34-15 over rival Rio Vista. So we appreciate the northern section schools too. Jordan, game ball us. Who you got up there, sir?
All right. Well, Chris got a few of mine, but staying on the Del Oro Placer game, Victor Suarez, he had an interception for the Golden Eagles that set him up for a big score right before the end of the half, and then a long fumble recovery for a touchdown as well for him. So big night for him. Staying on the defensive side and giving it to some love to the guys in the trenches. Rockland's defensive line, 11 tackles for loss in their win over Lincoln of Stockton. That was without head coach Jason Adams, who was serving his suspension for what we had talked about in a couple other episodes. Connor Kostecki had 11 total tackles. Dom Coelho, San Diego State commit, 4 tackles for loss. Asher Runyon, 3 tackles for loss. Asher Runyon's a kid that's probably going to start getting some college attention pretty soon because I feel like every week I'm mentioning him somehow or he's getting brought up on this show. But he had the 3 or 4 sacks, I believe, in opening night against Turlock and had another one this. Coelho had 2 more sacks, so a shout out to him for that. Will Gant over at 12 Bridges, 3 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that's about as efficient of a stat line as you can put together for that one. Then Matthew Marquez, 7 catches, 86 yards. Big win for the Rhinos there. That was 42-27 over Whitney. I think it was 35-7 at one point. 12 Bridges looking the part right now of a team that could go 10-0 once again. A couple other ones. Bear River, big win on the road over Union Mine, 30-8. I had a feeling when they hung around Truckee that this could be a special group, and I know Union Mine's a little bit down this year, but I think that's a huge win, especially for a first-year head coach with a lot of juniors in the program. That's not an easy place to play. I think that's a very defining win for him there. A couple other ones going out of the area a little bit. How about a game ball for Cardinal Newman? You're down to your backup quarterback. You just got throttled by Manteca and coming out and beating Grant. That's a huge win for Cardinal Newman right there. I think they deserve a game ball for that because that is a strong Grant team. And how about a game ball for Intercom as well, beating a Pleasant Valley team fairly soundly? And that Pleasant Valley team was coming off an impressive win as well, defeating Central Catholic the week before. Just a couple of other ones for it. We've got Austin Mack and Caleb Edwards at Alabama connecting for a touchdown pass there. That's a huge one. And then another game ball at the college level. How about Robert Meyer, the Colfax product, a true freshman at the University of Missouri, kicked 2 field goals and he kicked went 4 for 5 on extra points in his first collegiate or kicked his first 2 field goals, I guess. First 2 collegiate field goals in Missouri's 42-31 win over Kansas. I was just casually watching that game, and all of a sudden I see the kicker pop up, and I'm like, wait, I covered that kid last year in high school, and I had to double take for a second to realize that it was him. So that's always kind of a fun part of this job. But man, that's got to be a change going from Robert O. Marson Field up in the hidden trees of Colfax to kicking at an SEC stadium during one of their biggest rivalry games. I mean, talk about going from point A to point B in a year. That's a huge jump.
Yeah, no, that's just great stuff. And it is. And we're big picturing this, and you're so right, going from the hills of Colfax. And it just shows if you have talent, doesn't matter what size school you go to, whether you're going to Modern Day, Bosco, Mission Viejo, Centennial, Grant, Folsom, or Colfax. If you can play, you can play. And that just debunks any theory that you got to go to a frontline school to get recruited and seen. No, you just need to have unusual skills, gifts, size, good character, because they're going to look into all that, and good transcripts. So a couple more game balls. Connor Frontiera, the smooth quarterback for 12 Bridges, the Raging Rhinos of Lincoln, 291 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, leads the win over Whitney, 42-27. The road trip was exhaustive. It was about a mile and a half. They could have walked over there, but that's an interesting big win for Chris Bean and the guys there. How about El Dorado coach Kevin Plasick? He is a trooper as a coach for the Cougars of Placerville. They don't have large numbers. That's common with smaller schools, but he got a big win over East Nicholas, a longtime Northern Section powerhouse. Hunter Rupley, 2 touchdown passes and ran for a score. So El Dorado is got a nice win there, and outstanding. We hit them all. We hit them all. Let's do this now. Let's do a round table now where we pick a game this week, project who wins, and then and then bounce it around. We'll do quick hits on that. So I'm going to start with Ponderosa taking on Granite Bay. And Davy Johnson is the longtime coach for the Ponderosa Bruins of Shingle Springs. They're coming off of a couple weeks ago. They beat Casa Roble. That was a big win. So they're 3-0. How did the Bruins size up against Granite Bay? Davy Johnson's never scheduled a Sierra Foothill League team. He knows this is a fantastic gauge game. I think Ponderosa will show. I think they'll compete, but I think Granite Bay is just a little too strong. Isaiah Enney is just a brute. He's got the great shock of hair. He shouldn't even run with a helmet. Just go with the shock of hair. I think Granite Bay handles that game. I'm going to go 35-17, but I think Ponderosa will show that it belongs.
Yeah, I mean that's a great
I
matchup
would
right there. You got to play the best to be the best, right? And Ponderosa's already got that big win over Casa Roble. It's a fun one against Granite Bay. Two great coaches, two great people. I'll pick Granite Bay in this one. I love what Granite Bay's got, especially that senior class, Eni Turner. But don't count out the Ponderosa Bruins. They've already got some good wins on their resume, and that they're going to hang around.
I'm with you, Chris. If you ask me to pick this game in July, I think Granite Bay went soundly, but after what Pondo's done to start the year, I think it puts up a fight. But yeah, I'm going to go Granite Bay here too. We actually picked this one in our weekly one. I think I said Granite Bay 34, Pondo 21.
All right, here's another good one. Inderkum Tigers of the Natomas School District taking on Destiny Christian Academy. It's a non-league game, and this game will mean a lot for Inderkum coach Justin Reber. He's an alum of Capital Christian, which became Destiny Christian just over a year ago when the church take over. Boy, that's a tough game to size up. I'm going to go with Inderkum. They've had their whole roster intact since the start. Destiny Christian's got all kinds of talent, still trying to get some transfers cleared. I'm going to go with Inderkum in a low-scoring, physical, fun game, 21-20.
I'll take Intercom in this one as well. Battle tested, some big wins here ever since that Monterey Trail loss. What have they done? Won big games. Marin Catholic, Pleasant Valley. This team's looking really good. And Destiny Christian is not at full strength. We've seen it. They've section came down with some rulings last week. Decision date September 4th, September 5th for a lot of them. Numerous players, a couple of them with Division One offers, opportunities denied because of violations of CIF bylaws 202 and 510. I like Intercom, especially full roster intact. I think the Tigers are going to keep this train rolling.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I'm high on Endercom this year. I think it's a great battle, but I feel like Endercom's kind of one of those teams that just gets better as the year goes on. They're coming off a big win right now. So I'll go Endercom. I'll say 28-24.
All right, dude, we have a whopper of a small school game. The Sutter Huskies taking on Bradshaw Christian, the pride of South Sacramento. That's where that game will be. These teams have battled to the wire in non-league games, including recently when Bradshaw Christian had a 98-yard game-winning drive, and also in the playoffs. I'm going to go with Sutter in this one. I think Sutter's just got a little bit more experience. I'm going to go with Sutter in a 24-23. I always do that. If it's a close game, it's like by 1 point, but I see Sutter in a great one. They could see each other in the playoffs.
I will be at this game on Friday. I cannot wait. Sean will be at whatever wins our game of the week, but I called dibs on this game a while ago because there's no way I'm missing this kind of small school battle. There's going to be a lot of rushing yards, a lot of big hits, but I like Sutter in this one. There's not much you can do for those edge rushers at Sutter. They've got Troy Bowens, the four-star, about 6'4", 250. Yeah, Gavin Lavoie, 6'4", 240, 245. How many schools have that at any level, let alone Division Five? And running the ball super well, 200-yard rushers last week. And Braden Scritchfield is a quarterback that does not make mistakes. I know Sutter's thought about that game last year on this field. In fact, it's going to be a really good freaking game, but I like Sutter to win this one by just a few points.
I'm going to make it boring again and keep it chalk. I am very high on Sutter this year. I think Sutter is like state championship good this year. I'll pick a little bit more lopsided, but I'll call my shot here. This is my Babe Ruth of podcasting moment. Sutter wins 27-14, but it's a 6.5 minute drive at the end, and they punch that go touchdown to make it a two-score game in with like 38 seconds left, just a backbreaker drive. But yeah, I think Sutter's just got the pieces to be playing into December this year, and it's hard to pick against the Huskies right now.
Yeah, and that game's going to be on natural grass. Great to see. Small school vibe. We love it. How about the St. Mary's Rams, top ranked in the Stockton area? Tony Frank's been around for 100 years. He's really that old. And taking on Casey Taylor and the Oak Ridge Trojans in El Dorado Hills. It's just by design. It's kind of tough scheduling. I'm going to go with the host Trojans. I think they're going to beat St. Mary's, which may be the top team in Section Division Two. I'm going to go. I think it's going to be 24-20. Oak Ridge by design, and then they're getting ready for the Sierra Foothill League gauntlet that starts with Oak Ridge taking on Del Oro the week after.
What a matchup this is. Two top five teams in the entire section, regardless, two NorCal ranked teams. You know, El Dorado Hills is going to be loud. That student section is always awesome there. I like St. Mary's, though, on the road. They've gotten some big wins already. Experienced quarterback Jaden Galvin's playing really well. Kenneth Moore, a four-star UCLA commit. Well, I think he's a three-star in every site, but I call him a four-star. I think he's that good. So, I'll call him a four-star. Their running back, Diego Hernandez, is running super well. They've got athletes on the outside. They are deep, physical, talented. I am just a huge fan of the St. Mary's team, and I find it hard for me. I think I was on the radio the other day saying it's hard for me to pick against Kenneth Moore and those guys, and I'm going to stick to it. I don't think I can pick against them right now.
I'm gonna actually go against you guys on this one, and I'm going to pick Oak Ridge in it. And there is one reason only. Casey Taylor is 4-0 all time against St. Mary's, and I just think he's one of those coaches that just finds ways to win these big games, especially against these section opponents. Oak Ridge hasn't seen someone from the section yet this season, so I think they go and make a statement here. I'm going to go Oak Ridge 24, St. Mary's 17.
Great stuff. Casey Taylor, 4-0 all-time against St. Mary's, including when he was at Del Oro in some spirited playoff games. All right, the Roseville Tigers and the Woodcreek Timberwolves in an all-Placer County Roseville Rumble there. I keep picking against Roseville for every odd reason. They're banged up with injuries. I'm not doing it this week. I think Adam Ranking, the coach, and their staff, I think they're going to seize Roseville. They like playing Roseville teams. They've already beaten Oakmont. They just beat West Park. Now they want to take on Woodcreek. And win there. So I think they're going to win that game. I think it'll be high scoring, 34-30, Roseville Tigers.
It's so hard for me to pick against Roseville at this point, but you know what? I'll give you guys just a little extra motivation. Seeing what Woodcreek's done, the 7 turnovers forced against Jesuit, this team's undefeated. Coach Stowers, as we heard from one assistant, Jordan United, it's as good of a leader, as good of a coach, as good of a person as there is. And they've got some just tenacious workers on this team that they've called some of the hardest workers they've ever been around. This is going to be a really good game. I'm going to pick Woodcreek in this one. I will not be surprised if come next Monday, Roseville won again. They're 4-0, and I look like a dope on the air. But you know what? I'll take Woodcreek in another close one.
That's why we're Stooges, man. All right, the Holy Bowl.
Oh, I don't get to give a junction ball prediction.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Thank you for interrupting me. How do you like the Junction Bowl?
I'm going with this one. I'm going to go with Woodcreek in it. I'm with you guys. It's hard to pick against Roseville with what it's done. A fun fact: I remember back in high school when this rivalry was played. It's always been fierce, but I remember my junior or senior year, these two teams were going at it when they were both in the SFL, and one of them was, I believe, 1-8, and the other was 0-9. So seeing both these programs a decade later coming into this game undefeated is huge. But I'm giving the nod to Woodcreek here. Kyle Stowers is one of the best coaches in this area, even in his first year returning to the Timberwolves. I played for him at Delaware. I know how he's able to motivate his guys, and just he's going to have these guys ready for it. I think Woodcreek is riding a real high right now, and I think this is a Woodcreek team that can win a section title. So I'll go Woodcreek 34, Roseville 28.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Capping the weekend, the Holy Bowl is at Hughes Stadium at Sacramento City College. The Jesuit Marauders rolling right along. Only loss was to Woodcreek in an opener. How do you respond? They've bounced back big, including a big win over Bellarmine of San Jose, taking on Christian Brothers Storied program, excellent coach, Larry Morla. They're young on the offensive line with just one senior. They were taken to task, the Falcons were, by Nevada Union's punishing ground game. I think the same thing continues here. I think Jesuit will run behind its quarterback, Teddy Rios, and their fleet of good backs and a tremendous offensive line. But the game, again, last year we thought it might be kind of lopsided, and it was 7-0 win for Jesuits. So it's a rivalry game. Here's what's interesting, a little subplot about this rivalry game. It was created in 1969, but it took years to get it going because Jesuit opened in 1963, decades after Christian Brothers opened, because there were concerns on both campuses that people would take football too seriously. And do we really even need to have football? Now that logic is so ridiculous because rivalry games is what it's all about. Football is what it's all about. De La Salle opened in the 1960s, five or so, and it took 8 years to get football implemented because the founding I forget his name, but he used to be a former principal at Christian Brothers in Sacramento, and it took him years to convince people, hey, football could really work here at De La Salle High School here in Contra Costa County. And the thinking was, no, we need our kids to focus on academics, and football just may really be something that takes away focus. Well, boy, isn't that archaic thinking? Could you imagine if 12 Bridges open? We're not going to have football. We don't know that. I mean, football galvanizes a campus. So there we go. It took forever to get the Holy Bowl going. It's a traditional game. I like Jesuit winning this game handily, probably 35-7.
Joe, I love how you mentioned last year's game because there were a lot of times after the game where it felt like we were playing bloody knuckles on that football field. The one score was a pick six. Christian Brothers had chances to win that game, and that was with Isaiah Jordan now playing at Nevada, unable to play in that game because of a very questionable call from that week prior. Hard to know how a rivalry is going to go. It never matters how good, how not good a team is, right? I like Jesuit in this one. They're super physical. Seems like they figured it out ever since that Woodcreek game. But it's a rivalry. I should probably give a game ball to Larry Morla too. He and his wife recently had a kid last month, so congratulations there. Larry Morla is one of the good guys in the business as well, so happy for them. But unfortunately, Larry, I'm picking against your squad this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it 3 for Jesuit. I'm with Chris though. I think rivalry games you gotta throw the records out the window. We've seen too many times at all levels, whether it's a division game in the NFL or Pop Warner football, when it's a team that you don't like or it's a team across town or whatever, you wake up with a little more pep in your step for that game. And I think Christian Brothers is going to do that. I think you kind of open up the playbook a lot more for games like this. And, if you land a punch or two, all of a sudden, sometimes these rivalry games can turn crazy. I'm going to go Jesuit with this. I like a low scoring game, not crazy low scoring, but let's say something like 21-10. But I think Christian Brothers is going to come ready to play. And I think we're going to be a little bit surprised by them being able to stick around at this one.
Excellent. Guys, great roundtable. Our opening theme of hazing, don't do it. It's not cool. It's not fun. It buckles teams. It shatters victims. People videotape this stuff. You are up for criminal charges, expulsion, team suspensions. Is it worth it? You are opening the can of ridicule of yourself and your own school. The school doesn't deserve that. The football team doesn't deserve that. So don't haze. Be a leader. You don't even have to be a starter to be a leader. Your efforts could be in leadership right there. And as for teams who are thinking early in September that they're going to be a state championship team, whether you're a large school, small school, just pump the brakes and focus on today and tomorrow. Listen to your coaches. They know what's going on. All right, Joe Davidson, Chris Jackson, Jordan Georgeson. We will see everybody next week. We appreciate everybody and onward.